We've got power rankings. We've got your mailbag questions. We've got it all covered on this show. Heartland College Sports, where you find us covering the Big 12. I'm Pete Mundo. Glad you're here as always. Make sure you are dropping those questions in the live chat right now. And all we ask of you is to subscribe to the channel and hit that like button on the video if you are watching on the YouTube channel. So I'll count down the power rankings, 16 down to number 1, and then get to your mailbag questions here on the show as well. At number 16 in the Big 12 football power rankings for Week 10, you are going to be shocked, stunned. You are going to have your mind blown to find out it is still Oklahoma State. I know you can't believe it. The Cowboys, who just got shut out again, or just got blown out again, even shut out for the first time against Texas Tech this past weekend. Yes, the Pokes are number 16, and I don't think I need to rub any salt in that wound, so we'll just move on. At number 15, West Virginia. Now, the Mountaineers actually put up a fight against TCU this past weekend, but I can't move them ahead of UCF because UCF smoked them a week and a half ago by 30 points. So even though I thought the Mountaineers showed some good fight this past week, I cannot, in good faith, move them off of the number 15 spot. At number 14, UCF. The Knights were idle this past week, so there's no reason to really move them up or down. They traveled to Baylor this weekend in a game that actually looks fairly winnable. So that's more about how Baylor is playing as well right now. But we've got UCF at number 14. At number 13, the Kansas Jayhawks, same spot they were last week. So 13 through 16, identical to last week. KU was up 7-0 on K-State and then got the doors blown off them, 17 straight losses to the Wildcats. That one was ugly. It was the worst loss of the Lance Leipold tenure at KU. And Lance Leipold, to his credit, is acknowledging that. He's not trying to sweep this under the rug and just say, hey, that was a bad game, we're moving on. He knows what that game meant. He knows what that moment meant with KU being the favorites going into that game, at home, new stadium, the whole thing. And they put up a total stinker. So I give Lance Leipold credit for going out there and taking the heat the last 48 hours, but I've got him at 13 in the power rankings. At number 12, Colorado down from 9. You know, I don't care that Colorado beat Iowa State 2 weeks ago. Colorado put up one of the most abysmal performances we've seen this year, this side of Oklahoma State. Then the first half, Colorado had negative 18 total yards compared to 398 total yards for Utah, and they were down 43-0. That is horrific. So I do put, when I do these power rankings, some extra emphasis on what have you done for me lately and the most recent results. So I know some of you are going to be like, how do you have Colorado below Iowa State when Colorado beat Iowa State 2 weeks ago? When you go for minus 18 yards in the first half and your opponent goes for 398 in a 416-yard swing between these two teams, and you're down 43-0, frankly, you can make a case they should be lower. But I got them at number 12 this week. At number 11, the Baylor Bears. Same slot that they were in last week. Was not a pretty game for Baylor going up against Cincinnati, but at this point, I can't move them any lower because of what they've done this year and also what the people below them have done so far this year. They've been a disappointment, and there's no doubt about it. They have made staff changes this week already. The offensive line coach was fired on Monday. So Dave Aranda knows that things are starting to heat up down there in Waco. He's acknowledging that, and he knows he's got to start winning and winning quickly, and that's got to start this weekend against UCF. At number 10, Arizona. They're up from number 12. They didn't play, but they move up 2 spots because of what Baylor did, getting crushed by Cincinnati, and also what Colorado did, getting blasted by Utah. So I actually moved Arizona up, and I think Arizona's played some pretty good football. I mean, they were real close against Houston. We know what Houston did this past weekend against Arizona State, what they've done all season. And, you know, they played BYU close. Not many teams are saying that. So Arizona actually moves up, even though they were idle, in part because of what the teams below them did, and in part because of how their losses actually keep looking better, with each passing week. At number 9, Iowa State up from number 10. Yeah, they lost to BYU. They've lost 3 in a row. But you know what? They put up a darn good fight against BYU. If not for a couple of bounces in that second half, they might have been in a different position to win that game. That's not me downplaying what BYU did at all. Please don't take it that way. That's not the case here at all for a second. What this is really about is about an Iowa State team that, let's be honest, a bad special teams play, ball hits a player's leg, gets recovered by BYU, they go on to score, and then a pick six, and that's the ball game. So Iowa State's at number 9 this week. At number 8, TCU. I actually moved them down from number 6. It's just another game where TCU can't finish. They let Baylor back in the game last week. And then at the end of the game on Saturday, West Virginia was suddenly putting a scare into the Horned Frogs. You know, I mean, that fumble by McAllister, if that didn't get recovered by TCU, WVU has a chance to go down the field and score. They're talented, but they've got to get better at closing, especially against lesser competition. At number 7 in the power rankings, Kansas State, moving up 1 spot. They smoked Kansas in that Sunflower Showdown. They move up. They're starting to look more like the team we thought they were going to be back in August. But hey, 4 losses by a total of 13 points will do it. The one that's going to nag them is that Baylor game. I mean, that was just, that one, based on how Baylor is playing, that one's going to eat at K-State and its fan base for the entire season. Because with that win, they were up, 2 scores in the second half to blow that game. If they win that game, they're right in the thick of this Big 12 race, despite what happened in Ireland, despite what happened against Army, despite what happened against Arizona. So all those things, you're like, man, that Baylor game, that's the one that's going to stand out. But K-State, still in the mix. Texas Tech this weekend, must-win game to stay in the hunt. But hey, it's only a 3-point spread. We'll talk about it coming up here on Heartland College Sports. I'm Pete Mundo. At number 6 in our power rankings, Arizona State down from 3 to 6. They follow up their best game of the season against Texas Tech with a dud against Houston. They didn't have Jordan Tyson at wide receiver, but that is not the sole reason for their struggles. The defense was suspect after a great game against Tech, and Sam Leavitt was on the run most of the night. So you look at that combination, that's a losing combination. Arizona State right now falls from 3 to number 6. At number 5, the Utah Utes, right where they were last week. Utah crushed Colorado, all-time performance. Bird Ficklin, the true freshman quarterback, put on a show. My goodness. The Bear and the Bird out there in Provo and Salt Lake City. I love everything about that for the next couple of years across the Big 12 Conference. That's going to be a lot of fun. But in all seriousness, that was a bloodbath on Saturday in Salt Lake City. Colorado did not get off the bus. They should not have been on the field. And Utah, to their credit, bounced back from a tough loss against BYU in a big-time rivalry game and did not look defeated. They just blasted Colorado on Saturday. They stay at number 5. Moving up from 7 to 4, the Houston Cougars. They continue to fly up these power rankings, and good on them. They deserve it. Went on the road, got a great win against Arizona State. They've won, a bunch of games here. They're 7-1. They're undefeated. When you look at, they're not undefeated in the league play at all, so I will take that back. But obviously, this is a team that right now is playing outstanding football, and it's happening on both sides of the ball. And that's what you've got to like from this team. It's not just like this high-powered, high-flying offense getting it done. It also is the defense. The sacks, the tackles for loss, the passes defended the other night. I mean, Sam Leavitt didn't have a window to work into. It wasn't just not having Jordan Tyson. It was just airtight play in that secondary by Houston. And then Connor Wigman, man, when that guy's using his legs, I've said it for weeks. I sound like a broken record. I don't care. When that guy uses his legs, there's a different element to this offense. And he's getting more confident doing it every single week. You don't want him to get hurt, but you got to be smart about it. That's how you win in the NFL. That's how you win in college. You got to have that guy who at least can let it rip on the ground when you need it and be smart about it. And Wigman has shown the ability to do that so far this season, especially the last couple of weeks for the Houston Cougars. So good on him and good on them. They are number 4. At number 3 in the power rankings, the Texas Tech Red Raiders. They are up from number 4 to number 3. They crush Oklahoma State after their loss to Arizona State. They pitch a shutout in the process. They did lose backup quarterback Will Hammond for the season. The good news, Baron Morton expected back versus Kansas State this weekend, but now he's got to stay healthy. At number 2, the Cincinnati Bearcats. That's where they were last week. They are there again this week after blasting Baylor in one of the better defensive performances we have seen from this team this season. Sawyer Robertson had his worst game of the year. While they rushed for over 250 yards on offense, they keep getting better. They've won 7 straight, and they are number 2 this week. And at number 1, it is the BYU Cougars. Down 14 points. They lose their star running back, L.J. Martin and Ames. But Bear Bachmeier says, I got it. Don't worry. This was the best win for BYU this season. They are 8-0, more balanced in some ways than last year. And frankly, they should be getting more attention than they're currently getting. I'm Pete Mundo, Heartland College Sports. Those are the Big 12 Power Rankings for this week in the conference. Thank you, as always, for being here and joining us as a part of the show. Let me count down those Power Rankings from 1 to 16 for Week 10. BYU is 1, Cincinnati is 2, Texas Tech is 3. Houston comes in at 4. Utah's 5, Arizona State 6, K-State 7, TCU 8, Iowa State at 9, Arizona is 10, Baylor's 11, Colorado is 12. KU comes in at 13, UCF is 14, West Virginia 15, and Oklahoma State at number 16 this week. If you are not yet, I'm going to give you a chance to quickly check and make sure you are subscribed to the channel on YouTube or on Apple or Spotify podcast. All right, please do take a moment out and also hit the like button on the video. We are grateful for your time and you doing that. That's the only thing that we ask of you on this show. Let's dive to your mailbag questions here. What do you say? I've got some stuff on Facebook. We'll get to your live chat as well. And let's see what we've got here on the mailbag. Let me start with this. Stan asks, is Texas Tech versus K-State a trap game for the Red Raiders? Well, if it is, shame on Texas Tech. There is no way that this can be a trap game for Texas Tech because BYU's coming to town next week. Texas Tech has no margin for error. Kansas State is playing its best football of the season. Kansas State looks like the team that we thought they were going to be before the season back in August. That's what they look like. So if you're Texas Tech, you can't afford a trap game here. All right, you're already not in a Big 12 championship game if the season ends today. There is no trap game. You can't have them if you're Texas Tech. You can't afford a loss if you're Texas Tech in this game. So, no, it can't be a trap game for Tech. You're going on the road. You're not even thinking about BYU next week. You just can't. You cannot get caught looking ahead. You can't be 2 weeks out of a loss and have a trap game. I'm sorry, you can't mentally have one of those, especially with the way this K-State team is playing right now. Not a shot. This is a trap game for Texas Tech. I think Joy McGuire is going to have these guys completely focused, and I am not worried about Texas Tech having a trap game here. Now, I will say I'm not totally sold on the idea that they're going to win the game. I will talk more about that coming up on the preview show, which is why you have to be subscribed to the channel. But if they lose, I don't believe it's going to be because they treated this as a trap game. No way, no how. Sarah says, can K-State beat the Red Raiders? Yes, they can. I'm not saying that's my pick, but I believe that they can. All right? I certainly think that they can do that. Let me see what else you've got here. Christopher asks, is there any way Houston is left out of the conference title with their super easy schedule remaining? Well, sure. If they lose some of these games. I mean, it's really that simple. If they win out, they're in a good spot. But will they? They've got West Virginia at home, UCF on the road next Friday, week off, hosting TCU at Baylor. The game that concerns me for Houston is obviously hosting TCU. Because as much as I have been down on TCU, they're very talented. They could still be in the Big 12 title hunt by that time of the season. And that will be a tough game. But I believe they'll handle West Virginia, go to UCF. They should win. And Baylor, who knows what's going on there in that final week of the season. But this ties into a bigger conversation here. With 16 teams in the conference, your schedule matters. And this is something that gets talked about a lot in the SEC and the Big Ten. Mostly the Big Ten, because the Big Ten has a clear distinction between the haves and the have-nots. Not as much in the SEC, and not as much even in the Big 12, because the Big 12 has historically been more balanced between the top team and the bottom team. This year, there are some bad teams in the Big 12. There's no denying that, and we've talked about it extensively. So Houston's schedule has been and has turned out to be very favorable for them in a way that maybe not a lot of us thought it was going to be. Right? We thought Baylor was going to be competing for a Big 12 championship. Baylor can't stop a nosebleed. So now you're like, hey, is Baylor even competing for a bowl game in that final game of the regular season? Heck, is Dave Aranda the head coach? He just had to fire his own line coach. If things go off the rails, is Dave Aranda on the sidelines in that game? That's not a crazy thing to ask yourself right now. So last year in the Big 12, you had a situation where the teams that everybody predicted to be at the bottom ended up at the top, or at least a few of them. Most notably, BYU and Colorado, and of course, Arizona State, who ended up winning the whole conference. This year, it's not necessarily flipped upside down. There are some surprises. There's no doubt about it. I mean, BYU is not picked to be a top contender this year by many. Obviously, Houston in that category as well. Same with Cincinnati. But it's not totally flipped the way it was. I think we all knew West Virginia was going to struggle. UCF was going to struggle. Oklahoma State was not expected to be good. They weren't expected to be this bad, but not great. But some of these teams are really bad. So I can't sit here and say that Houston's a lock, but they win 3 of their next 4. At the very least, they're looking at trying to figure out tiebreakers to likely play for a Big 12 championship. If they win out, they're in a great spot to obviously play for a Big 12 championship. A lot of questions about K-State and Texas Tech. Don't worry. I got more coming, all right? We got more coming on the show. Just hang tight. I'm Pete Mundo on HeartlandCollegeSports.com. This question comes from our Facebook page. Pete, did you single-handedly get College Game Day to a Big 12 campus this weekend? I don't want to say single-handedly. I think we all did it together, all right? You did it. Yeah, we may have helped with that process. College Game Day is going to Utah versus Cincinnati this weekend. And this announcement came a day after we shamed College Game Day on the website at HeartlandCollegeSports.com. We dropped a video on Saturday that was only on YouTube and on the podcast, calling them out for just terrible Big 12 coverage all day on Saturday and having not been to a Big 12 campus in over 3 years. And what do you know? The next day, they announce they're going to Utah versus Cincinnati. I'm happy about it. I'm not going to say single-handedly. I think that you played a role in this because you shared our written work. You shared our video. You helped that thing go viral on Saturday. So I'm not going to say it was single-handedly this show, but I do know that there are important people around the Big 12 and around college football who read and consume our content. And they can get them into the hands of the right people. I do not do anything with Game Day. I don't know anybody there. The only history I have with ESPN was working for an ESPN affiliate at a radio station in Pennsylvania after college and interning at an ESPN radio station in college. That's it. So it's not like I'm getting in front of the ESPN folks at all. Trust me, that is not happening. All right. Just a guy who's built up a halfway decent audience with this microphone, and you are a big reason for that. But I will say I found it interesting that the day after we put them on blast, out of nowhere, they decide, hey, we're going to a Big 12 game. First time in 3 years they've been on a Big 12 campus. KU versus TCU, 2022, October, last time they were on a Big 12 campus. That's wild. So go figure. I'm excited about it. I hope that you guys are as well. Now, it also means that they're probably not going to go to Texas Tech, BYU, if the Red Raiders beat K-State this weekend. I would never say never, but I'm not going to bet on it. You're telling me that they're going to go to back-to-back Big 12 games after turning their backs on this league for 3 years? Come on. I'd love to be wrong. I so want to be wrong about this. I'm telling you, it would make me so happy to be wrong. To get back-to-back game day Big 12 games, and Lubbock's going to be popping if they win this weekend against K-State and welcome undefeated BYU to town next Saturday. Lubbock is going to be out of control. You better buy your tortillas now, because I'm telling you, there are not going to be any available in Lubbock if they win on Saturday, starting on Sunday morning. Those grocery stores are going to be out of tortillas. So I can't wait for that scene if Tech wins this weekend. But I can't get myself there. You have Alabama, LSU, and I know that LSU just fired Brian Kelly, but that gives them a reason to talk about something. That's a great storyline. Nick Saban going back to Alabama is always something they might like to do. They did it last season, so I don't know. I do believe Tech BYU would be worthy of game day, but something tells me they're not going to Utah, Cincinnati this weekend because they planned on a Big 12 game next week. Call me crazy. I'd love to be wrong about it, but that's just my observation from afar here as I analyze it on the Heartland College Sports YouTube channel and on the podcast and the radio show, and we are glad that you helped make that happen. So give yourselves a little golf clap, a little round of applause, okay? I don't want all the credit. You guys get some of the credit as well. Make sure that you are subscribed right now to the channel at Heartland College Sports, and we appreciate you, as always, being a part of the show. Let's go to some more of your questions here. All right. Well, this kind of weaves into that. Big noon kickoff or college game day for Tech BYU? Which one would you like to see? I'd like to see them both. Is that too much to ask? Is that too much? Maybe it is. What else? Let's see on the mailbag. Fire away. Morton back for Texas Tech. Yes, he is expected to play this weekend. He apparently could have played against Oklahoma State, but after the game, Joy McGuire basically said, because we knew we could win this game without him, we didn't play him. Keep him rolling. Is Aranda on the hot seat? It's getting hot. Yeah. When you start firing coaches on the staff, you know it's getting hot. And I think it is hot for Dave Aranda. And you know what? I think it should be hot for Dave Aranda. Dave Aranda entered the season with a team that a lot of people thought could win the Big 12. I still have my magazine here, Phil Steele, College Football Preview Magazine. He picked Baylor to win the Big 12. I'm not saying that to knock on Phil at all. I love Phil. He comes on the show. He's a great guy. It's the main preview magazine I buy every year. My point is, a lot of people liked Baylor to win this league. And Baylor is now in a spot where you wonder, where are they going with all this? The defense is abysmal, and that's the thing that hurts Dave Aranda. The defense is abysmal, and that's what Dave Aranda does. That's where he made his money, on defense as a DC. He's 4-4. They're 2-3 in the Big 12. He's got UCF, Utah, Arizona, Houston left. They'll probably be underdogs in their last 3 games against Utah, at Arizona, and versus Houston. If they go 5-7 and he doesn't make a bowl game, I mean, you could probably justify keeping him, and you may justify keeping him because of this insane coaching carousel with now LSU also open. because you got to figure out where you're going if you fire Dave Aranda. Or you just say, screw it, we're going to dump the money into the roster and give this guy more money to work with, but I'm not convinced it fixes the problem that you've got right now at Baylor, which is a coach that is underperforming. After he got his money, he realized he had to start paying players, investing in players, if you want to call it that. But it's just not a good scene right now in Waco. And they have been massive underachievers. And they were underachieving last year until they went on that, 6-game winning streak to end the season, which basically saved his job. So that is a tough spot all around. And I'll tell you what, if you are a Baylor fan, I get why you're frustrated. But please don't go back to the Art Briles nonsense. I've been following this league for 10 years. And whenever there's been a coaching opening, there's a contingent to the fan base that is insistent that they've got to bring back Art Briles. I mean, there's going to be a day when Art Briles is no longer with us, and there will be fans who are like, it's time to bring back Art Briles. I don't care. Prop him up on the sidelines. Do whatever you got to do. Get him up. Get him up there. Okay? We need him back. I'm not saying I want that to happen, to be clear. I'm just saying there is a contingent to the fan base that just continues to go down that road. Unbelievable. What else do we have here from you? M. Morris, was it Colorado is no good or the backup quarterback is better than the starter? I assume that means Ficklin over Devin Dampier. I don't want to take away from Bird because I love the idea of a guy named Bird being a starting quarterback in the Big 12. But Colorado is abysmal. And that was as pathetic a performance as I've seen in the Big 12 this year. Colorado with minus 18 total yards in the first half. Utah had 398. You've got to be kidding me. Now, I like Bird, and Jason Beck had a great game plan for him. Got him going on the ground early, then opened up the passing game. But that game was more about Colorado just not showing up on Saturday. All right, what else? Why does everyone care about college game day coverage? It's just a distraction. Yeah, but it gives you an idea into what your major TV partner thinks about your league. And considering ESPN, I get it, owns the SEC, but they are in bed with the Big 12 as one of the two major TV partners. The total disrespect for this conference by ESPN, which also plays a major role in the college football playoff, the rankings, the decisions, things like that. That's where it all works together, and that's why it's worth talking about. So I understand that some of you may feel that way, but there is a broader conversation around ESPN, game day selection sites, college football playoff berths, how teams and conferences are projected on ESPN. All that stuff weaves together. So that's why it's a big deal. What else? Pete, can you make an educated guess as to where game day is going in 2 weeks? I assume that you mean that's the BYU Texas Tech week. We talked about that a lot. I would just ask you to replay the show when we are done here with the live broadcast. Donnie says, is Texas Tech an SEC team in the Big 12? Well, no. What does that mean? An SEC team in the Big 12? Come on. I mean, they lost 10 days ago. Stop with that. I don't know what that means. I love you, Donnie, but I don't know what that means, buddy. I really don't. Christopher, who is more likely to win out, BYU or Cincinnati? Okay, that is a good question. Let's see here. Well, they play each other, right? Cincinnati plays Utah on the road, Arizona at home, BYU and TCU. BYU plays Texas Tech after the bye week, TCU, Cincinnati, and UCF. Oh, man. I don't think either of them are going to go undefeated, to be honest. I don't see that happening for either team. That's a great question, though. If I had to pick one to go undefeated, I'm going Cincinnati. And the reason why, their home game is against BYU. It's as simple as that. They go on the road against Utah, then it's home to Arizona, home to BYU, on the road to TCU. BYU goes to Texas Tech, home to TCU, to Cincinnati, and then UCF. Their two toughest games are on the road for BYU. So that's why I'll lean Cincinnati. Now, I think that BYU has the better roster top to bottom, but that's not what Christopher asked. He asked who's more likely to win out, BYU or Cincinnati. So that is a great question. Matt Campbell to Wisconsin. No, stop. No. I think Matt Campbell would take Penn State's call. I do. I think that's the job. Penn State, Notre Dame, Ohio State, those jobs in that part of the country would entice Matt Campbell. Wisconsin, no way. All right. Thank you guys for being here. Please make sure you are subscribed to the channel for the mailbag, for all the other content we have coming your way. We've got Tim Brando on the show coming up this week. So if you want to be here for that conversation, another reason to subscribe to the podcast and the YouTube channel. Like the video before you leave. It does make a difference. I know it sounds crazy, but it really does make a difference. Thank you guys. Have a great day. Go Big 12. We'll talk to you soon.